I never thought I'd be here writing this story. 2 months ago, I had what I believed was a perfect marriage. Emma and I had been together for 8 years, married for 5. We had a beautiful home in the suburbs, successful careers, and plans to start a family next year. Everything seemed right on track until I discovered her relationship with her work husband. That's what she called him, Aaron. Her colleague at the marketing firm where she'd been working for 3 years. Whenever she mentioned him, it was always with a casual laugh. Aaron thinks this, or Aaron suggested that. I never worried about it. I trusted my wife completely. I wasn't the jealous type. Besides, she always reassured me they were just good friends and work partners. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. The late nights at the office becoming more frequent. The weekend, emergency client meetings. Her phone always face down. The way she'd step out of the room to take certain calls. But I was busy with my own job as a financial advisor, often working long hours myself. And I didn't want to be that controlling husband who questioned his wife's every move. The revelation came during what should have been a celebration. I had just closed a major account at my firm and wanted to surprise Emma by taking her to dinner at the upscale restaurant where we had our first date. I left work early, bought flowers, and called her office to see if I could steal her away. The receptionist, clearly confused, told me Emma had left at noon for her long weekend trip. I stood in the lobby of my office building, flowers in hand, frozen in confusion. Emma hadn't mentioned any trip. We had plans to visit my parents that weekend. I called her cell straight to voicemail. I texted. No response. A knot formed in my stomach as I drove home, telling myself there must be a reasonable explanation. When I arrived, I found a note on the kitchen counter. Had to go help my sister with her kids back Sunday night. Love you. Her sister lived only an hour away. Why would she need a long weekend trip for that? And why hadn't she called me? It didn't add up. I didn't confront her immediately. I didn't send angry texts. Instead, I sat down at our dining room table and thought carefully about what to do next. The financial advisor in me took over. I needed more information before making any decisions, so I waited, observed, and started paying closer attention to everything. When Emma returned Sunday night, she was full of stories about her sister's children and their antics. I listened, nodded, asked questions, all while noting the tan lines that hadn't been there before. Her sister lived in a rainy part of the state that had experienced storms all weekend according to the weather report I'd checked. I didn't say a word about my suspicions. Instead, I started documenting everything. Times she came home, excuses for late nights, weekend absences. I checked our shared credit card statements and found charges for restaurants in the city on nights she'd claimed to be working late. I noted how she'd started changing her password on her phone more frequently, and all the while I remained the same attentive, loving husband. I brought her coffee in the mornings. I listened to her work stories, including those about Aaron. I never let on that I suspected anything, because I knew that the moment I showed my cards, the truth would become much harder to discover. 2 weeks after the sister visit incident, I decided to implement the next phase of my information gathering. I didn't want to be the husband who snooped through his wife's phone while she slept. That wasn't who I was, but I needed to know the truth. So I took a different approach. I began casually mentioning Aaron in conversation, gauging Emma's reactions. How's Aaron doing with that big client pitch? I'd ask innocently over dinner. Each time I noticed a pattern. Her eyes would briefly look away before answering. Her voice would change slightly, becoming more controlled, more measured. She was editing her responses. He's fine, she'd say before quickly changing the subject. One evening, I suggested we host a dinner party and casually mentioned that she should invite some of her work colleagues, including Aaron. I added, I'd like to meet this work husband of yours properly. Her reaction was immediate and telling. Oh, I don't think that's a good idea, she said too quickly. Aaron's really shy around new people. Besides, I like keeping work and home separate. This from the woman who had invited her entire department to our house for a holiday party just 6 months earlier. I nodded understandingly. Whatever you think is best, I said, but internally, another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. The most damning evidence came when I decided to surprise her at work one day for lunch. I hadn't been to her office in months, and I thought it would be a nice gesture. I arrived at noon with her favorite sandwich from the deli she loved. The receptionist, a different one from the day of my earlier call, smiled warmly at me. You must be James. Emma's told me so much about you. She picked up the phone to call Emma's extension. While waiting, I casually asked, Is Aaron around today? I've heard so much about him from Emma, thought I'd finally introduce myself. The receptionist looked confused. Aaron? I don't think we have an Aaron in the marketing department. Before she could say more, Emma appeared, looking flustered. Seeing me standing there with lunch, her face registered shock before quickly arranging itself into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. James, what a surprise! She kissed my cheek and practically dragged me away from the reception desk. Let's eat in the courtyard. Throughout lunch, she was distracted, checking her phone constantly. When I mentioned the receptionist's confusion about Aaron, Emma laughed it off. Oh, she's new. Aaron works remotely most days. I smiled and nodded. Hello. Subscribe to Secret Diary for more content. Thanks for your support. But another piece of evidence had been collected. Later that day, I checked the company website and employee directory. There was no Aaron listed in any department. That night, Emma received a text while we were watching TV. She glanced at her phone, and I saw her expression change. A softness came over her features. A small smile played on her lips. She excused herself to respond to a work email. When she returned 15 minutes later, I asked casually, "Everything okay at work?" "Just a client issue," she said dismissively. "Nothing important." I began creating a detailed log of all these inconsistencies and strange behaviors. I noted dates, times, and my observations without emotional commentary, just facts. The financial advisor in me was treating this like a case study and risk assessment. I also started discreetly preparing for what might come next. I spoke with my friend Mark, who happened to be one of the best divorce attorneys in the city, ostensibly asking for advice for a client who suspects his wife is cheating. Mark gave me valuable information about documentation, finances, and the steps I should take to protect myself if my suspicions proved correct. "Tell your client not to confront her until he has concrete evidence," Mark advised, "and make sure he secures his finances without raising red flags." I took his advice to heart. I opened a separate bank account at a different bank and began transferring small amounts of my personal savings, nothing from our joint accounts that might alert Emma. I gathered important documents and stored them securely in my office. I made copies of our tax returns, investment statements, and property deeds. All the while, Emma seemed completely unaware of my preparations. She continued her pattern of late nights and mysterious texts, becoming increasingly careless. One night, she left her laptop open when she went to take a shower. I hesitated only briefly before sitting down to look. Her email was open, and there it was, a message from an AM with the subject line, "This weekend." I clicked it open and felt my stomach drop as I read, "Booked the same cabin at the lake. Told my wife it's a business retreat, so I'm clear from Friday through Sunday. Can't wait to have you all to myself again. These stolen moments aren't enough anymore." I quickly took screenshots, sent them to my email, and closed the laptop exactly as I'd found it. Then I sat back on the couch, outwardly calm while my mind raced with confirmation of what I'd suspected. A.M. Aaron Martin, the work husband who didn't exist at her company. I still didn't confront her. Instead, I finalized my preparations. The pieces were in place. Now, I just needed to wait for the right moment to make my move. The breaking point came 3 weeks later. During a dinner with friends we'd known since college, 2 other couples joined us at our favorite restaurant, people who had been in our wedding, who had celebrated every milestone with us. As we settled in with drinks, the conversation turned to upcoming plans. "We should all go away for a weekend," suggested Sarah, one of our closest friends. "Maybe rent a cabin at the lake?" I felt Emma tense beside me but kept my expression neutral as I sipped my bourbon. "That sounds great," I said, watching Emma from the corner of my eye. "We haven't done a group trip in ages." Emma shifted in her seat. "I don't know if I can get away. Work is crazy right now with the new campaign." Mike, Sarah's husband, laughed. "Come on, Em. Even workaholics need breaks. Bring that work husband of yours if you have to." "What's his name again?" "Aaron," I supplied helpfully, my voice casual. Emma's fork clattered against her plate. "He's just a colleague," she said sharply. "And I've told you guys I really need to focus on this campaign. My promotion depends on it." The promotion she'd never mentioned to me. "What promotion?" I asked, genuine curiosity in my voice. She faltered. It's not definite yet. I didn't want to jinx it by talking about it too much." The table fell into an awkward silence as our friends exchanged glances. I smoothly changed the subject, asking about their children, and the moment passed, but I could feel Emma's discomfort radiating beside me throughout dinner. On the drive home, she was quiet. I maintained my composure, discussing the evening, laughing about inside jokes. When we arrived home, she kicked off her heels and poured herself a glass of wine. "That was nice," I said, loosening my tie. "Though I'm curious about this promotion you mentioned." She took a large sip of wine. "It's nothing concrete yet. Just a possibility. Still, that's exciting. You should have told me. I'd have taken you out to celebrate the potential." She shrugged, avoiding my eyes. "Like I said, I didn't want to jinx it." I nodded, then casually added, "Maybe we could celebrate at the lake this weekend. Take a couple of days, just the 2 of us." Her eyes widened slightly. "This weekend I can't. I have to work." "At the cabin?" The words left my mouth before I could stop them. Time seemed to stop. Emma froze, wine glass halfway to her lips. "What did you say?" I maintained perfect calm, though my heart was pounding. This was it, the moment of truth. I could back down, pretend I'd misspoken, continue the charade, or I could finally lay my cards on the table. I chose the latter. "The cabin at the lake, where you and Aaron are planning to spend the weekend." My voice was steady, emotionless. "The same cabin you've been going to on your work emergencies and sister visits." The color drained from her face. "James, I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you?" I walked to my office and returned with a folder. I placed it on the kitchen counter between us. "Aaron Martin Age 42, Senior VP at Wilkins & Shaw, married to Rebecca Martin for 15 years, 2 children, owner of a cabin at Lake Harmony, purchased 3 years ago. Her hands trembled as she set down her wine glass. You've been investigating me? I've been discovering the truth. I corrected her. There is no Aaron at your company. You've been lying to me for months, possibly longer. She stared at me, then at the folder, her expression cycling through shock, anger, and finally, a kind of defeated resignation. How did you find out? She asked quietly. Does it matter? The important thing is that I know. I know about the trips, the late nights, the lies. I kept my voice level, refusing to show the pain that was threatening to overwhelm me. What I don't know is why. Was it something I did? Something I didn't do? Emma sank into a chair, her composure crumbling. It wasn't supposed to happen, she whispered. It started as just friendship. He understood the pressures I was under at work. He listened. And I didn't? You were always so busy with your clients, your investments. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. Aaron made me feel seen in a way I haven't felt in a long time. I laughed, a hollow sound. So this is my fault? Because I worked hard to build the life we both said we wanted? No. That's not what I'm saying. She stood up, her voice rising. It's complicated, James. You wouldn't understand. Try me, I said coldly. She paced the kitchen. Aaron and we connect on a different level. He's passionate about the same things I am. With him, I don't have to explain myself or justify my choices. And those choices include lying to your husband and sleeping with a married man. Her eyes flashed. It's not just about sex. We love each other. The words hit me like a physical blow, but I didn't flinch. Love, I repeated flatly. Does his wife know about this love? Emma looked away. He's going to leave her. We've been planning. Planning what exactly? I interrupted. To destroy 2 marriages? To build your happiness on the ruins of 2 families? She stared at me, and for a moment I saw a glimpse of the woman I'd married. Conflicted, confused, human, but then her expression hardened. I want a divorce, James. 5 words. Simple, direct, devastating, yet somehow I'd been expecting them. I nodded slowly. I thought you might. I picked up the folder and returned it to my office. When I came back, she was still standing in the kitchen, looking lost. You should know, I continued calmly, that I've been preparing for this possibility. I won't make it easy for you to walk away from our marriage with half of everything I've worked for, only to run off with your married lover. Her expression changed, anger replacing uncertainty. Are you threatening me? Not at all, I replied. I'm simply informing you of where we stand. You've made your choice. Now I'm making mine. I walked past her to our bedroom, packed an overnight bag, and left without another word. I spent that night in a hotel. Not because I couldn't bear to be in the same house with her, but because I needed space to initiate the next phase of my plan. The confrontation had happened, but the real work was just beginning. As I lay in the impersonal hotel bed, staring at the ceiling, I felt a strange sense of calm. The uncertainty was gone. The path forward was clear. Emma had chosen her work husband. Now it was time for her to understand exactly what that choice would cost her. The next morning, I didn't call Emma. I didn't text. Instead, I executed the plan I'd been developing over the past weeks with methodical precision. My first stop was my office, where I arrived earlier than usual. I had a 7 a.m. meeting scheduled with my financial advisor, not in my capacity as an advisor myself, but as a client planning for a significant life change. We reviewed the steps I'd already taken and finalized the protection of my assets. The separate account you've established will shield the inheritance you received from your grandfather, he confirmed. Since those funds were never commingled with joint assets and were always kept separate, they should remain solely yours through the divorce proceedings. I nodded. And the investment portfolio I started before the marriage? Again, as long as you haven't added marital funds to it, you have a strong case for keeping it separate. The documentation you've maintained shows clear distinction. By 9 a.m., I had moved forward with freezing our joint credit cards, not canceling them, which could appear vindictive, but placing a temporary freeze due to suspected unauthorized use, which would buy me time. I also transferred my direct deposit from our joint account to my new separate account, effective immediately. At 10 a.m., I met with Mark, my attorney friend, who now officially represented me. I provided him with the file of evidence I'd compiled: dates, times, text screenshots, emails, and financial records showing Emma's expenditures related to her affair. This is thorough, Mark said, impressed. Most clients come to me emotional, disorganized. You've practically done half my job. I'm a financial advisor, I reminded him. Documentation and evidence are what I do. He reviewed the prenuptial agreement Emma and I had signed before our wedding. It contained a fidelity clause, something Emma had actually insisted on, ironically enough. If either party committed infidelity, they would forfeit claims to certain assets and would receive significantly reduced spousal support. This is solid, Mark confirmed. With the evidence you've gathered, we can enforce this clause. But are you sure you want to go this route? It will get ugly. I'm not the one who made it ugly, I replied evenly. I'm just ensuring the consequences match the actions. By noon, the divorce papers were being prepared, but that was just the beginning. At 1 p.m., I drove to Wilkins & Shaw, the investment firm where Aaron Martin worked as senior VP. I had an appointment with Douglas Wilkins himself, one of the founding partners. We had crossed paths at industry events, and while we weren't close, he knew me by reputation. James, he greeted me, shaking my hand firmly. What brings you to our neck of the woods? Not looking to jump ship from your firm, I hope. He laughed jovially. I smiled politely. Nothing like that, Douglas. This is actually a personal matter. It concerns one of your executives, Aaron Martin. Douglas's expression turned cautious. Aaron? What about him? I placed a sealed envelope on his desk. Aaron has been having an affair with my wife, Emma, for some time now. I have conclusive evidence which I've included copies of here. Text messages, emails, receipts from their weekend getaways. All while he was supposedly on business trips authorized by your firm. Douglas stared at the envelope, then at me. James, I'm sorry about your personal situation, but why bring this to me? Because Aaron has been using company resources to conduct this affair, I explained calmly. The evidence shows he's been submitting expense reports for trips with my wife, claiming they were business-related. That's fraud, Douglas. And given your firm's reputation and the client trust you've built, I thought you should be aware before this becomes a larger issue. His face hardened. A larger issue? Divorce proceedings can become messy and public, I said, and while I have no intention of dragging your firm's name through the mud, these financial improprieties will likely come to light during discovery. I thought you might appreciate the opportunity to address this internally first. Douglas picked up the envelope. I'll look into this immediately. I'd appreciate that, I said, standing to leave. Oh, and Douglas, Aaron is planning to be at his lake cabin this weekend with my wife, just in case you need to reach him for this internal matter. As I left Wilkins & Shaw, I received a text from Emma. Where are you? We need to talk. I didn't respond. My next stop was a small coffee shop 3 blocks from Emma's office. I had arranged to meet Jennifer, Emma's closest friend from work, the one person who knew the truth about the affair and had been covering for her. Jennifer didn't know why I wanted to meet, but she agreed, perhaps out of curiosity or guilt. She was already seated when I arrived, nervously stirring her latte. James? She said, surprised. Is everything okay? Emma's been trying to reach you. I sat down across from her. I know about Aaron, I said without preamble. Her eyes widened, but she quickly composed herself. I don't know what you're talking about. Please, Jennifer, don't insult both of us by continuing the lie. I know you've been covering for her, making excuses when she's with him, even lying to me directly when I've called the office looking for her. Jennifer looked down at her coffee. It's not my place to get involved in your marriage, but it was your place to facilitate her affair. I kept my voice low, controlled. You might want to consider your position carefully. As Emma's confidant, you could be called to testify in divorce proceedings. Under oath. She paled. Testify? James, I never meant to hurt you. Emma is my friend and she was unhappy. I just wanted to support her by helping her deceive her husband. Some support. I placed a business card on the table. This is my attorney's contact information. He'll be in touch about a deposition. In the meantime, you might want to consider where your loyalties truly lie. With a friend who made you complicit in her deception, or with the truth. I left Jennifer staring at the card, her hands shaking slightly. By 4 p.m. I had checked into a different hotel and met with a real estate agent about listing our house for sale. The property was in both our names, but a sale would force the issue of our shared assets. The agent was confident we could list quickly and attract multiple offers in the current market. The sooner the better, I told her. I'm ready to move on. Throughout the day, Emma's calls and texts had become increasingly frantic. I finally responded with a simple message. I'm safe. Currently meeting with my attorney. All further communication should go through him. I included Mark's contact information. She called immediately. I let it go to voicemail. At 6 p.m., I received a call from Mark. Emma's trying to reach me, he said. She sounds panicked. What did you do today? I took control of the narrative, I replied. Is there any legal reason I should stop? Not legally, no. But James, escalating like this, it could make things more contentious. It was already contentious when she decided to cheat, I said calmly. I'm simply ensuring she understands the full consequences of her choices. As evening fell, I sat in my hotel room, meticulously checking items off my list. Tomorrow was Friday, the day Emma and Aaron were supposed to begin their romantic weekend at the lake cabin, but their plans were about to change in ways neither of them could anticipate. I ordered room service, ate methodically while reviewing documents, and then went to bed. I slept soundly for the first time in weeks. The uncertainty was gone. The plan was in motion, and Emma was about to discover that her work husband came with complications she'd never imagined. Friday morning dawned, and my phone exploded with notifications. Emma had called 17 times overnight and left a string of increasingly desperate voicemails. James, please call me back. We need to talk about this face-to-face. You can't just freeze our accounts. How am I supposed to pay for anything? Why is there a real estate agent calling about listing our house? You can't do this. The final message left at 3:27 a.m. was different. Her voice was quiet, defeated. I know you think I deserve this, and maybe I do, but this scorched earth approach, this isn't you, James. The man I married wouldn't do this. I deleted the messages without responding. She was right about one thing. The man she married wouldn't have done this, but I wasn't that man anymore. She had changed me, and now she was experiencing the consequences. At 9 a.m., my phone rang with an unknown number. It was Aaron Martin. What the hell do you think you're doing, Hoyan? He demanded without introduction. Good morning, Aaron, I replied calmly. I assume you're calling from your personal phone since your company device may have been confiscated by now. There was a moment of stunned silence. How did I know you'd be facing an internal investigation for expense account fraud? Or how did I know about the affair at all? Does it matter? What matters is that actions have consequences. You chose to sleep with my wife. These are the consequences. Listen, his tone changed, becoming placating. I understand you're upset. Any man would be. But this vendetta against me professionally, that's going too far. This is between us, man to man. No, Aaron, I corrected him. This was between you, me, and Emma the moment you decided to insert yourself into my marriage. Your professional misconduct is between you and your employers. I simply made them aware of it. You've potentially ruined my career, he shouted, and you potentially ruined my marriage. I replied evenly. Seems we're even on the potential ruination front. Although, I added, I imagine Rebecca might have some thoughts about all this as well. Another silence. Rebecca? My wife? I wouldn't what? Tell your wife that her husband has been cheating on her? That the business trip she's been supporting him through were actually romantic getaways with my wife? Why wouldn't I? Don't you think she deserves to know the truth? Please. His voice cracked. Rebecca is fragile right now. We've been going through some things. This would destroy her. You should have thought about that before you started sleeping with my wife, I said, coldly. But don't worry, Aaron. I haven't contacted Rebecca yet. That's scheduled for this afternoon, right around the time you two were planning to start your weekend getaway at the cabin. You bastard. Goodbye, Aaron. I'd wish you good luck, but frankly, I hope you get exactly what you deserve. I hung up and blocked his number. By noon, the wheels were fully in motion. Mark called to inform me that Emma had retained her own attorney, a shark known for aggressive tactics in divorce cases. She's claiming emotional abandonment, Mark said. Says you were distant, unavailable, that the marriage was effectively over before her affair began. She's trying to nullify the infidelity clause in your prenup. I laughed mirthlessly. Let her try. The evidence speaks for itself. She's also filing an emergency motion for continued access to marital assets. The credit card freeze and bank account transfers have left her financially stranded, according to her filing. I followed your advice to the letter, I reminded him. Everything I did was legal. Legal, yes. But courts don't always look kindly on what they perceive as financial bullying, regardless of the circumstances. Then counter with evidence of her using our joint funds to finance her affair. Hotel receipts, gifts for Aaron, all documented in the file I gave you. Mark sighed. This is getting ugly fast, James. Are you sure this is how you want to proceed? Absolutely, I said without hesitation. She chose this path, not me. At 2 p.m., I received an email from Douglas Wilkins. It was brief and to the point. Aaron Martin has been placed on administrative leave, pending an internal investigation. Thank you for bringing this matter to our attention. I forwarded the email to Mark with a simple note. Add this to the file. At 3 p.m., exactly when Emma and Aaron had planned to be arriving at the lake cabin, I drove to the modest suburban home Aaron shared with his wife, Rebecca. I had never met her before, but I knew from my research that she was a kindergarten teacher who had recently returned to work after taking time off for what Aaron had called some things they were going through. Rebecca answered the door looking tired but curious. She was a petite woman with kind eyes and a hesitant smile. Can I help you? Mrs. Martin, my name is James Collier. I need to speak with you about your husband, Aaron. Her expression immediately shifted to concern. Is everything okay? Has something happened to him? He's fine, I assured her, but there's something you need to know. May I come in? She hesitated, then stepped aside. Of course. I followed her into a neatly kept living room with family photos on every surface. Photos of what looked like a happy family. Aaron, Rebecca, and their 2 children, smiling at the camera. What's this about? She asked as we sat down. I took a deep breath. I had rehearsed this moment, planned exactly what I would say. But seeing her, this woman who was another victim in this mess, made me reconsider my approach. My anger was with Aaron and Emma, not with her. Mrs. Martin, there's no easy way to say this. Your husband has been having an affair with my wife, Emma, for several months now. She stared at me, her expression unreadable. Then to my surprise, she laughed. A short, bitter sound. Is that all? I thought you were here to tell me he'd been in an accident. It was my turn to be stunned. You knew? Rebecca sighed, the weight of her knowledge evident in the slump of her shoulders. Not specifically about Emma, no. But I've known Aaron was unfaithful for a while. The signs were all there. She trailed off, looking at the family photos. I just wanted to hold things together for the kids. I felt a surge of unexpected kinship with this woman. We were both collateral damage in the selfish choices of our spouses. "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. "I came here thinking I was delivering news that would shatter your world. I didn't realize that it was already shattered." She smiled sadly. "The world doesn't end all at once, Mr. Collier. Sometimes it crumbles bit by bit until you wake up one day and realize you've been living in ruins for a long time." We talked for nearly an hour. I showed her some of the evidence I'd gathered. Nothing graphic or humiliating, just enough to confirm what she already suspected. She told me about their marriage, how Aaron had changed after his promotion 3 years ago, becoming distant, critical, always looking for something more. "The affair isn't even the worst part," she confided. "It's the lies, the constant lies about where he is, what he's doing, who he's with. At some point you start to question your own sanity." "I know exactly what you mean," I said. Before I left, Rebecca asked me a question that caught me off guard. "What are you going to do now? After the divorce, I mean." I realized I hadn't thought that far ahead. My focus had been so singular. Expose the affair, protect my assets, ensure consequences, that I hadn't considered what came after. "I don't know," I admitted. "Rebuild, I suppose, find a way forward." She nodded. "That's all any of us can do." She walked me to the door. "Thank you for coming here, for telling me the truth. Aaron should be home soon. His office called earlier saying he needed to come home for a family emergency." I raised an eyebrow. "Did they?" She smiled, and for the first time, I saw a flash of steel beneath her gentle exterior. "Yes, I called them this morning and said there was an urgent family matter he needed to address. I was planning to confront him tonight anyway. Your visit just gave me better ammunition." As I drove away from the Martin house, I realized that Rebecca had taught me something important. There was power in quiet dignity, in facing the truth without letting it consume you. The devastation of betrayal didn't have to define the rest of my life. By evening, my phone was exploding again. Emma, Aaron, even Jennifer from Emma's office. I ignored them all. Let them panic. Let them scramble to contain the damage. I was done playing their game. Now they were playing mine. The weekend passed in a blur of legal meetings and paperwork. By Monday morning, the full impact of my actions had begun to materialize. Emma had moved out of our house and was staying with a friend. Aaron had been suspended from his job pending further investigation. Their planned romantic getaway had imploded spectacularly, replaced by frantic damage control efforts. I returned to our house, my house now, in my mind, to find it eerily quiet. Emma had taken some of her clothes and personal items, but left most of her things behind. Perhaps she still believed this was a temporary separation, that somehow we would find our way back to each other once the initial shock wore off. She was wrong. 3 days later, I received an email from her attorney requesting a meeting to discuss an amicable resolution. Attached was a proposed settlement that would have given Emma half of everything: the house, my retirement accounts, even my inheritance, while making no mention of her infidelity or the prenuptial agreement she had violated. I forwarded it to Mark with a single word: no. Mark called me immediately. "James, I know you're hurt and angry, but maybe we should consider." "Consider what?" I interrupted. "Rewarding her betrayal? Pretending the last 8 years meant nothing?" "No, we proceed as planned. Full enforcement of the prenup, sale of the house, division of assets according to the infidelity clause. She's willing to go to mediation." Mark persisted. "That could save you both a lot of money and public exposure." "I'm not interested in saving her anything," I replied coldly. "And as for public exposure, I'm not the one with something to hide." 2 weeks after the initial confrontation, I met with the real estate agent again. The house was officially on the market, priced to sell quickly. Emma had been notified through her attorney but had made no attempt to block the sale. Perhaps she realized the futility of fighting me on this front. At work, I maintained a facade of professional composure. My colleagues knew something was wrong. The sudden sale of my house, my change of address to a downtown apartment, the absence of Emma at recent company events. But I offered no explanations. My personal life was exactly that, personal. Then, exactly 1 month after I discovered the affair, Emma appeared at my office unannounced. She looked thinner, her eyes shadowed with exhaustion, but still beautiful in the way that had first drawn me to her years ago. "James," she said quietly as she stood in my doorway, "can we talk, please?" I considered refusing, but curiosity won out. What could she possibly have to say that would matter now? "You have 5 minutes, I said, gesturing to the chair across from my desk. I remained standing, creating a deliberate power imbalance. She sat, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. "I've made a terrible mistake," she began. "Which one?" I asked coldly. "The affair? The lies? Or getting caught?" She flinched. "All of it. James, I know you won't believe me, but I never meant for any of this to happen. Aaron and it started as friendship, then became something else, and before I knew it, I was in too deep." "Spare me the rationalization," I said. "You made a series of deliberate choices, Emma. Every lie, every secret meeting, every weekend away. Those were choices you made with full awareness of what you were doing. I know, she whispered, tears forming in her eyes, and I'm paying for those choices now. Aaron's been fired. His wife is filing for divorce and full custody of their children. My friends won't speak to me. My parents are devastated. My entire life has fallen apart. I felt no satisfaction at her distress, just a hollow emptiness. And you came here hoping, what, that I would comfort you? That I would somehow make it all better? I came to tell you that Aaron and I are over, she said, looking up at me. It wasn't real, James. What we had, what you and I had, that was real. I threw it away for a fantasy, and I'm sorry. More sorry than you can ever know. For a moment, something stirred within me, a flicker of the love I'd once felt for her, but I extinguished it immediately. Your relationship status with Aaron is irrelevant to me now, I said. Whether you're with him or not doesn't change what you did. I know that, she said quickly, but I hoped. She took a deep breath. I've been talking to my therapist about why I did what I did, about my need for excitement, for validation, things I should have discussed with you instead of seeking them elsewhere. Your 5 minutes are almost up, I said, glancing at my watch. James, please, she implored. Can't we at least try? 8 years together has to be worth something. People make mistakes. Marriages survive affairs all the time. I looked at her for a long moment, taking in every detail of her face, the face I'd once loved more than anything in the world. Not this marriage, I said finally. Not this affair. Not these lies. She began to cry in earnest now. What can I do? Tell me what I can do to fix this. Nothing, I said simply. There's nothing you can do. The divorce will proceed as outlined by our attorneys. The house will be sold. We will divide our assets according to the prenup you signed. And then, we will go our separate ways. Just like that, 8 years erased. Just like that, you erased them, I corrected her. Every time you chose him over me. Every time you lied to my face. Every time you took the love and trust I gave you and treated it as worthless. She stood, wiping her tears. I never thought you could be this cold, and I never thought you could be this deceitful. I guess we both misjudged each other. As she turned to leave, she paused at the door. For what it's worth, I really did love you, James. No, I said quietly. You loved what I provided. Stability, security, a comfortable life. If you had loved me, we wouldn't be having this conversation. After she left, I sat at my desk for a long time, staring at nothing. I had expected to feel triumph, vindication, perhaps even joy at seeing her brought so low. Instead, I felt only a profound sense of finality. A chapter of my life was ending. Painfully, but definitively. 6 months later, our divorce was finalized. The house had sold for above asking price with my portion of the proceeds safely invested. Emma had eventually accepted the terms of the prenup, perhaps realizing that fighting would only drain her limited resources and prolong the inevitable. She received significantly less than she would have in a no-fault divorce, but enough to start over. Aaron's professional life was in shambles. The internal investigation at his firm had uncovered not just the misuse of company resources for his affair, but other financial improprieties as well. He was terminated with cause, and, according to industry rumors, unlikely to find equivalent employment anytime soon. His divorce from Rebecca was proceeding, though I heard through mutual connections that she was thriving in its wake. She'd received the lake cabin as part of their settlement, a detail that gave me a small measure of satisfaction. As for me, I moved forward methodically, rebuilding my life piece by piece. I bought a new condo in a different part of the city, joined a new gym, even adopted a dog from the local shelter, a calm, loyal German shepherd who asked nothing of me but consistency and care. 1 year after the confrontation, I ran into Jennifer, Emma's former work friend, at a coffee shop. She approached me hesitantly. James, she said, how are you? I'm well, I replied, surprised to find it was true. And you? Good, good. She shifted uncomfortably. I heard Emma moved to Chicago for a fresh start. I nodded, feeling nothing at the news. I wish her well. Jennifer looked surprised. You do? Life's too short to carry anger forever, I said simply. What happened between us is done. I've moved on. That's very mature of you, I shrugged. It's not maturity so much as self-preservation. Holding on to bitterness would only hurt me in the long run. As I walked away with my coffee, I realized the truth in my words. The calculated vengeance I'd enacted had served its purpose. It had ensured consequences for those who had wronged me, protected what was rightfully mine, and given me closure. But it hadn't been about making Emma suffer eternally. It had been about making sure I could eventually heal. 2 years after discovering the affair, I met someone new. Sophia was nothing like Emma. She was straightforward, genuine, with a quiet confidence that had no need for drama or validation from others. On our third date, I told her everything about my marriage and its end. I expected her to be put off by the calculated way I'd handled things, but she surprised me. You protected yourself, she said simply. After being betrayed so completely, that's all anyone can do. As we build our relationship, I remain vigilant, watchful for signs of deception, but I'm also learning to trust again, cautiously, deliberately. The experience with Emma changed me, made me harder in some ways, more perceptive in others. I will never again be the man who was blindsided by betrayal. Emma chose her work husband, never imagining the choice would cost her everything else. My calculated response wasn't about revenge, though it may have seemed that way to her. It was about justice. Ensuring that actions had appropriate consequences, that deception didn't pay, that loyalty still meant something in a world where it often seems disposable. In the end, we all got exactly what we deserved. Nothing more, nothing less. And perhaps that's the most fitting conclusion to a story that began with lies but ended with cold, undeniable truth. Hello, subscribe to Secret Diary for more content. Thanks for your support.